O! Zizaran zrobił mój build do PoE, którym będę grał. 2 godziny temu, stary, wrzucony. Ty, dobra, widzowie, obejrzymy sobie buildzik, którym będę ja grał w PoE. Jakub mi go znalazł i dobrze wygląda. Podoba mi się. A co najlepsze, ma jeszcze opcję zmienienia go w zupełnie inny build w endgame'ie, nie? Dobra, obejrzyjmy. Co my tu mamy? Jezus, Zizaran ma ty zawsze te takie cringe'owe wstawki. Te takie kaseki, kurwa.
Hi, Scissorin here with another league starter for the 324 Necropolis League. This is going to be Ice Nova.
Generalnie mi chłopaki powiedzieli, że tym buildem powinienem zagrać, jeżeli chcę zrobić takiego mana stakera, bo on w tej lidze jest absurdalnie silny i najprawdopodobniej go znerfią.
Of Frostbolt. And this is another Goratha bait build. For those that have been enjoying the last collabs with Goratha, they've all been pretty insane.
Ty, patrzcie ten, jaki ma boss damage. Damage uptime, clear speed, mobility, defense. Nie, ten build jest podobno
A lot
świetny.
of time setting the meta. This is a Archmage build. And I will say this build does come with some warnings. This is
Ej, co to
not
boss?
as
Co
new
to jest za boss? Ja
player-friendly
nie wiem,
as
gdzie on
some of
jest.
the other builds that we posted out. And that's because crafting mana gear and things like that can be a little bit weird. And we're going to be using Arcanist Brand for the clear. So if you're completely new to Path of Exile and this sounds scary, then we do have a lot of other league starters. But it looks insanely strong. Ratha was just...
Ale wiecie co? My patrzyliśmy z Kubą i ten build wcale bez tego Arcanist Branda na taki clear to nie traci jakoś... Znaczy dobra, no on traci tam z 50% depsa mimo wszystko, ale to nadal jest... To ma tak absurdalnie duży damage, że to wystarczy ci na czerwone mapki jeden przycisk, nie?
showing me some footage. Let's hear from Goratha about how the build plays and how it does bosses.
So the playstyle is going to depend on whether or not you want to use Arcanist Brand for mapping or self-cast Frostbolt. The general idea is you cast Frostbolts, and then on the Frostbolts, you're casting Ice Nova of Frostbolts. With Arcanist Brand, the playstyle is you throw out Arcanist Brand. The Arcanist Brand will cast...
Najlepsze jest to, no nie? Że te kulki to zadają 1% swojego overall DPS-u. One ładnie wyglądają, ale one nic nie robią z tego, co widziałem, nie?
Frostbolt, and they'll return really fast, because the way Return Proj works with Arcanist Brand is you have a limited distance for which the projectile can travel. Because of the Arcanist Brand line, it says projectiles with core skills have a max range. This works really well for
Dziadem w szmatach będę grał, no.
because it like returns faster basically. Their Frostbolts are on top of the target more likely, or more often.
Jezu, ile to ma
I prefer
many,
the
nie?
Frostbolt of Arcanist Brand a lot more for single target, and I was actually clearing with it, and it felt pretty good to me for clearing. A lot of people prefer to self-cast
Dobrze wygląda
for clearing,
clear tym
though, but
gównem,
you're
nie?
always going to be using Arcanist Brand for single target. This is the boss single target damage setup. Now, like I said, the playstyle is you cast the Frostbolts, however you're casting them, and then you spam Ice Nova. That's the general playstyle. We have a couple buttons we can press that make the build a lot stronger. Arcane Cloak. This is the big one. This is a lot of your defense and a lot of offense as well. I recommend you self-cast this, but you can technically automate it if you want to be super lazy. I am
Pewnie,
personally
że
gonna
to
self-cast it.
zautomatyzuje.
Then we have Sigil, Power, and Frost Shield. These aren't really required. You can either self-cast these or automate them, or maybe not even use them. I am going to use them. They're very strong. It's just a lot of extra buttons to be clicking. I think a lot of people will probably try to automate them somehow. You can do that by the new Automation Gem, or Katava's Thirst, or Focus Helmet. There's a couple ways to do it. If I use them, I probably will self-cast them again. It's a lot of extra
Będzie farmiony labirynt po alternatywną wersję drzema? Nie, no co ty, kupię go sobie na
buttons, but they
tradzie.
are very, very strong. Frost Shield is a bit annoying as well. if you
Nie, ja nie
automate it,
gram
because
Haseka, nie gram
You
cmentarzyska.
have to stand in the Frost Shield, so if you like automate it and it casts it behind you where you're running already, it's like a bit wonky. That one could be worth this self-casting. Now, I think I probably will use Counter Arms during Cry, but if I need gem slots, this will probably be the first thing I drop. And then the Curse. If you're cursing Punishment, this is another thing you have to cast. That's kind of the general playstyle. The build is really fun to map.
Fajnie
I
build
always enjoy
wygląda,
it.
nie?
Some people might
Tylko,
think
że
it's
te
a bit slow,
kulki nie
but it actually
zadają
feels pretty
dobrego
good to me.
damage'a.
So-
Ty, a ja nie czaję jednej rzeczy. Po co się daje do nich returning projectile, skoro to... No to Gorata zrobił ten build. Po co się daje do nich returning projectile, jak one nie zadają damage'a? Czy dopiero target, który dostanie Frostboltem, dostaje większy od nowy i dlatego się daje, żeby Każdy target był skapowany
As you
Frostboltem.
see, super fun, very different from anything else. A scary thing about this is crafting mana gear can be pretty daunting.
Tak jest,
Getting high rolls,
Gader
especially on
Kisto.
weapons. Like the essences only affect gear, and this is a good way that you can force mana on armor evasion gear, but can be a little bit tricky to craft. So that should be interesting to see. But this looks so strong. Like some of the things that Garatha was showing with just face tanking Drox. And gotta remember, this is weaker than how
One lecą od Branda. Brand jest na bossie i wracają do bossa, więc jakby overlap. Okej, ale no to damage'a nie zadaje, nie? Prawie w ogóle.
Archmage should be in the next patch, because you'll have so much more mana because it uses less mana this patch. So that's why you're going to see a lot of people going Archmage, but again, a little bit scary for new players. It is very different than a super handholdy build. If this build guide helps you have a great league start, please consider subscribing. It helps me and my team out a lot.
Ty, ale dlaczego nie mówią, że ten build jest jakoś taki bardziej zaawansowany? W momencie, gdy ten build ma chyba najprostszą budowę, jaką ja widziałem kiedykolwiek w PoE. Tu budujesz życie, manę i supresa i damage. Ten build serio wygląda, kurwa, jak Diablo 4. Itemizacja na tym buildzie wygląda jak w Diablo 4. One nie zadają obrażeń, ale na nich kastuje się Ice Nova, więc jak masz przy bossie jedną Ice Nowę, a dwa... Aha! Poczekaj, to Ice Nova jest tak jakby z tych Frostboltów wtedy tylko wychodzi?
So, as normal, we're using Path of Building. If you're not familiar with how Path of Building works, we do have a video going over that. It's a very important tool that we use a lot. And Garatha's put a lot of
kurwa,
effort
to ma
here
to
into
sens.
going through different skill
One
trees.
przenoszą
So it's
Ice
very
Nowę, dobra.
clear when you're putting skill points, so you don't have to worry too much about what you're taking at what point. And also the what ascendancy point you take at what time will also be
A wiecie co ja
in
to
the,
widzowie potem
different
zmienię?
trees.
Ja to potem late game'owo zmieniam w Molten Strike'a, kurwa. Robię najsilniejszy w build PoE i chuj. Za Mirrora. Tak jest plan na tą ligę. Sfarmić mapki jak totalny pojeb. Wiecie, to jest mój pomysł na tą ligę. Sfarmić 200 divine'ów i robię chłopie wojownika barda łucznie czerwonego smoka. I to jest build, który będzie miał miliard depsa. I to bez kitu.
And then you have early mapping in Urbalab, and then you have an endgame tree. And a very cool thing about this build is this is
Będę,
actually
no,
what
który jest
Garatha
uczniem,
himself is
który jest
league
duchem
starting. All
dupy.
the things he's been playing lately have been very spicy, very strong, and it's very cool that he's always making like very different builds. So
Kamera
if that's what
tylko
you're
dla
looking for, this might be a
subskrybujących.
great build for you, and you'll be able to ask him loads of questions and see how the build evolves as he's playing it. And it looks like he has pretty solid damage.
Dobrze mówisz, stary. Uderz w Sanctum i poluj na podwójny mirror. Giga, dobrze gadasz, stary. Tak zrobię. Ej, właśnie, a jakie są zmiany w Atlasie teraz w tą ligę? Bo co ja farmiłem w poprzedniej? Ja farmiłem te 10 fal i ludzie strasznie narzekali, że to było giga słabe. A pod ten build, biorąc pod uwagę jaki zasięg ma nowa, to się to wydaje giga dobrze. Jak się to nazywa? Ja kurwa nigdy tego nie mogę zapamiętać. To było Sanctum właśnie? Widzowie? Czy Simulacrum? Jak się nazywa ta mechanika? Ultimatum. Jest Ultimatum zbuffowane. Ultimatum to jest najlepsza mechanika w PoE. Ale ten build to na Sanctum się nie nadaje, nie? Na Sanctum to musisz mieć takie jakby no-hity buildy off-screenowe. Ja bym widzowie Ultimatum grał, kurwa. Co byłoby dobre do czyszczenia tym buildem, żeby się zarobić? W poprzedniej lidze robiłem w poprzedniej lidze w ogóle to jest beka, tą piramidę robiłem, co tam kurwa te rękawiczki po kilka divine'ów. Pamiętacie jak sprzedałem w poprzedniej lidze rękawiczki warte 20 divine'ów za 2 divine'y? To dobrze dałem czadu. Delph wygląda spoko pod to. Bossy, mi się nie wydaje, że to był build typowo pod bossing, nie? Co by było dobre? Pod jaką mechanikę na Atlasie można byłoby się zbudować? Ja bym się znowu chyba to Ultimatum zbudował. To najbardziej lubię. Są jakieś zmiany w Ultimatum? To jest wiadome? Nie lubię ekspedycji strasznie, kurwa. Nie lubię ekspedycji. Wiem, że ekspedycja jest dobra, Filli. No i zajebiście Ognister, że ci się Kotor spodobał. Ekspedycja albo Harvest. Ani jednego, ani drugiego nie lubię. Ej, a na ten build to nie byłoby dobre te takie zamrożone moby? Jak się to nazywa? To, co się arkiem farmi. Wiecie, o jakiej mechanice mówię? Nie esencje, kurwa. Te takie, co... Nie chodzi mi o esencję. Legion chyba. Są już takie zamrożone moby czasowe. Kurwa, no nie wiem. Co byście w Atlasie mi polecili?
And because of Mind Over Matter, you have so much raw HP. You basically have like probably over 10k life fairly early in the build. You have so much energy shield, you have so much life.
Patrzcie, jaki on ma effective stary hit pool. 300k, kurwa, prawie. A to ma taki regen many, że ten effective health pool... Ej, a kurwa ja mam pytanie. Jak Mavenka wyłącza ci regen życia, a ty masz Mind Over Matter, to nie wyłącza ci regenu many, nie? Więc nadal masz teoretycznie część regenu.
And the mana protects the life. So just a large amount of raw HP. If you go here to the
A
skill
tu masz
section,
dwie aury
you
w
can
tym
see that we have
buildzie. W
the
sensie
early
jedną.
game with rolling magma
Plus
as
regen
normal.
many.
And Goratha was looking for some different ways to level than just Armageddon Brand and
A właśnie,
Cremation.
czym on leveluje?
Now, if you're really familiar with that, you absolutely can level with Armor Brand, Cremation, and Desecrate. A lot of people love leveling like that, but if you're getting kind of bored of that, he was leveling with Firestorm with Archmage, so literally leveling with an actual Archmage build, and he was doing it with the old Archmage gem, which is weaker than the one we're going to have, and I mean, the Deresto damage here in the campaign speaks for himself. This is on a fresh playthrough, and the Claire looks okay, so it looks like it could be a pretty fun way to level. Then here we have, when you're switching over to Ice Nova,
Okej,
a
czy
Frostpulse.
meteorem
Obviously,
jakiś
that's the
leveluje.
thing. You do need the Transfigured Gem, so you do want to grind that out. You can either do Normal Lab or Merc Lab. Obviously, farming Merc Lab is okay for getting a bunch of gear as well, and you do get more options on the Divine Font. And then here we
Nie
have
podoba mi się ten starter tym meteorem. Macie jakieś lepsze
mapping and
pomysły?
Urban Lab and the full endgame setup. And there are Awakened gems and stuff like that included. Obviously, there's no Awakened Archmage. If you go to the notes as well, there are loads of explanations of things that could be easy to fuck up for the build, tips for leveling, and definitely read through that before you go through it. Gear sets, early on, very standard.
To jest arma plus krema.
Just life and resist. All you want to focus on early is get resist capped, and remember that you can craft resist with the crafting bench on white gear. They don't even need to be blue or yellow. Then Act 5 gear is like getting slightly stronger, Act 10. And there's some examples of unique gear that you can use if this is your second or third character and you want a bit of a
Armageddon,
extra
Brand
help,
i
like the bonus
Cremation.
mana
Jak to
cost
działa?
of Crisis
Ja wiem, no, że to jest tu baton.
or freeze immunity on a dream fragment. And then we have mapping gear and endgame gear. And Goratha, the unique items in this build, are these necessary or do we have any rare items that we can use instead?
So the only really necessary item endgame would probably be Foible, and that's like super endgame. There is a really good option for helmet, which is Mind Spiral. But yeah, the unique items are not required at all. You could basically just use all rare gear and be completely fine. There's a lot of good options though, like Singularity for your weapon and stuff like that. I would recommend actually for the Energized Armor, just pick up
Ej, kurwa, patrzcie na to. To ma w mapping gearze 14 milionów depsa i 160 tysięcy effective health poola. Jezu, jaki ten build jest giga silny. Lubię Delirium, no. Bardzo, tam multum mobów wychodzi. Lubię Delirium. To jest to lustro, nie? Co się rozbija na początku mapy? W chuj lubię Delirium. No, Delirium zajebiste. I jeszcze masz potem eksplozję lootu na sam koniec, to jeszcze lepiej. A co, Delirium jest jakoś zbuffowane? Delirium i Legiony. Które to są Legiony? To jest bardzo mocny stan. O, to weź mi daj, Jakub, coś jeszcze, info o Atlasie.
every Crimson Jewel you find and disavow them, because that'll be very strong early on for getting.
Ej, widzowie, a może ja ten sezon byśmy sobie zagrali w party jakimś, kurwa? W ile osób w party można grać maksymalnie? Z widzami na Discordzie, jakbyśmy sobie pierdolnęli jakiś taki speed clear mapek? 6 osób. Tylko kurwa, ja nie umiem grać w party w PoE w ogóle. Co wy na to, żeby sobie może w party pierdolnąć ten sezon do momentu wejścia na mapki? Też by dobre mogło być. Moglibyśmy sobie pyknąć.
A lot of armor.
This is also a really good tip for making some extra currency early on because people are playing things like Ice Bear Totems and Explosive Arrow and Artillery
Armageddon to brand, co spałni meteoryty, uderza raz i białe moby umierają. Cremation to kulki, co respią się na zwłokach i służą do walenia bossów.
Ballista. So the Rain of Splinters does end up selling for a decent amount early on. A Natural Instinct is quite rare, and so is Ancestral Vision. And then we have an example of a Watcher's Eye here with the different good stats that would be very strong for the build. So, Goratha, on this build, what are some easy mistakes people can make?
You definitely want to get as much mana on your gear as possible. It can be easy to not get mana on your gear, but that is your damage and your defense at the same time. So make sure you do that. A preference, honestly, it's not really a mistake, but if you want to self-cast Frostbolt, I would play around with that. I personally enjoyed the Arcanist brand playstyle, and that felt good to me. But you can definitely self-cast it as well for clearing. The single target will always be Arcanist brand though, because that's just a lot more Frostbolts on top of the target you're attacking, so it'll be a lot more single target.
What about Stun Immune and stuff like that?
So you can get Unwavering if you really have an issue with stun immunity. we can take Unwavering because we don't have any evasion really anyways. I'm personally probably not going to do that because we do have a couple of evasion pieces and it feels like a little bit of a waste. There's going to be a new evasion or a new ES mastery, which will give you some more like stun threshold or whatever. You could definitely go for that too if it's a problem. I will probably just go for Brine King myself. I think Brine King's probably good enough.
How come you went for a cold skill instead of like a very traditional lightning skill?
I think the meta will probably end up being Bow Lightning, and like a new player might think that a lightning skill makes more sense for this type of build. But actually, being a cold skill is a big advantage, especially because we have no avoidance. Being able to freeze and chill everything makes it so we're not really taking damage very much.
Fajnie jest drzewko w ogóle rozdane w tym buildzie, podoba mi się jak się rozprasza w 3
And
strony,
yeah,
nie?
it's a big defensive layer to have like base cold damage. While we're still doing mostly lightning damage, it'll be really impactful for mapping.
Ty, a bez kitu, bo ten build zamraża cały czas, nie?
So there you have it. And remember, Garatha is league starting this himself. So if you have any questions or you want to see any differences or changes he makes live, check him out. He's going to be streaming loads on the launch. Amazing content creator, and I love doing collabs with him. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Go give
Chcę
him a...
rozłożyć Trickstera? Nie, bo grałem poprzednią ligę Tricksterem, wiesz? I nie chcę... Ja teraz tak jakby... Ja zagrałem 3 razy Witchką na samym początku, potem sobie zagrałem Tricksterem, czyli odnogą w prawą stronę i teraz sobie gram Templarą, czyli odnogą, która idzie w lewą stronę. I chyba na Next League sobie pierdolnę jakąś bołkę już może, ale mi się w ogóle nie podobają buildy z siłą w PoE. Nie wiem, kurwa, Marauder jest nie dla mnie, nie? Marauder nie dla mnie, Duelist też mi tak jakoś mega nie leży. Ja wolę górną część drzewka, a nie dolną, o wiele bardziej. Znaczy spowalnia, nie zamraża to zmniejszenie do 0. No, ty widzowie, może faktycznie w party byśmy to sobie pierdolnęli. To jest dobry pomysł.